Welcome to the Somos Sunnyside podcast, brought to you by the Office of Public Information, where we are sharing stories about the bright side of education.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Somos Sunnyside. I'm your host, proud superintendent of the Sunnyside Unified School District, Jose Gastelum, and we have some special guests here today to speak about some very important topics, especially with what's happened over the past couple of weeks. So I want to introduce them before we get started. We have Director of Safety and Security for the Sunnyside Unified School District, Mr. Ryan Powell. How are you doing, Mr. Powell?
Good, very good. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We also have Sergeant David Hill of the Tucson Police Department, who is part of the Threat Mitigation Unit. How are you, Mr. Hill?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for inviting us today.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. We also have our Public Information Director, Marisela Felix, who's going to be joining us, and she's going to be also discussing some of the communication pieces that we have in place as soon as we get on this topic here. So welcome also, Marisela.
Thanks for having me.
So yeah, I want to thank you guys all for being here. Such a sensitive topic that we're going to cover today, and what's been super trendy and has gone viral over the last couple of weeks are these social media threats. And so, I want the community to know, I want the Sunnyside families, our Sunnyside students, our employees to know that safety is our top priority. The safety of our students, the safety of our staff is our top priority. However, we do have to deal with these situations just like everyone else does. And the other piece that we want to talk a little bit about here is that we do have safety systems in place. And every year we look at these safety systems and try to update them and make sure that things are tight. And so, one of the other pieces that's super important is that safety is a shared responsibility, right? I mean, it doesn't fall on one person. The school district has a great responsibility of keeping children safe. The parents have a great responsibility of having conversations with their children. And law enforcement has a great responsibility of protecting the public and having those pieces in place to have the public feel safe. And so I want to get right to it. It seems to happen after there's these just tragic events, right? I mean, we had an event a few weeks ago where it was an active shooter event in Appalachia High School in Georgia. And it seems like after that incident happened, and our hearts go out to those victims, to those families, that you start getting these, what we call copycats. You start getting these social media threats that start circulating. And one of the things that we did see, and I'll have Sergeant speak to it here a little deeper, is there's these social media threats that go out, and it's an image. And what young people do is they change the wording, they change the banner, they start naming schools. And what that causes is it causes fear. It causes a disruption. And then they get the reaction they want, where people definitely start panicking for good reason, right? Because they want their children safe. And so we want to talk a little bit about that. So Sergeant Hill, if you want to elaborate just on what is it, how you guys work with that, how these threats come in, what is considered a threat, and just the experience that you guys have had over the past couple of weeks following the active shooter situation, the tragic event that happened in Georgia.
Thank you very much. That's a good place to start off. So we've noticed over the recent past, and that we'll have the copycat people. Right after the shooting in Georgia, we noticed social media posts, and they actually started in Georgia and around that area, but we were actually getting them. And then it spread and it worked its way across the West Coast. Approximately about a week and a half ago, we started seeing unique posts to the Tucson area. And it didn't just affect Sunnyside, it did affect all the schools, both the private and charter and the public schools within the Tucson area. One of the things that our goal here was to identify the posts and then try to identify who was actually making them and sending them out. It disrupted the educational institutions for all the schools through the Tucson area, and it was very difficult. So we started looking at it, and we wanted the help from the public, from our schools, and we started working really closely with all our school districts. We had an open line of communication between not just Sunnyside, but all the other school districts, saying, hey, what do you have? Let us know. How can we help you? But it also allowed the districts to give us things so we can quickly address them. Having that two-way communication allowed the threats that we had notified and identified as low risk. We were allowed to let the community know and let the school districts know that. We started talking, and we really appreciated, Sunnyside and the other school districts pushing out the Tucson Police Department. Really believes that if you see something, say something, and that really did help us. But one of the issues we were having is people were reposting these multiple times, and what we do encourage people is, I understand this is concerning for everybody, but contact law enforcement as quick as possible. Don't repost it, because it also makes it harder for us to track the post and go after prosecution of the people who are doing this. The people who are perpetrating these posts are trying to disrupt schools. They're trying to make people feel afraid. And in schools, we should not have that fear. So we've taken an active approach, going after these people and going after prosecution.
Well, thank you for that. And I want to reiterate those words, because this is something that, we're definitely speaking to our students about. I know our site leaders and our teachers are having these conversations with students about, if you see something, say something. Sometimes our biggest resources are our students when it comes to reporting. Many times we get reports with these types of situations from them before we get it anywhere else, and they're so social media savvy, tech savvy, and so they get this stuff faster than we do, and this stuff spreads quickly. I also like that piece in terms of advice to parents, and I know parents mean well. They're trying to create awareness, but reposting is not creating awareness. It's causing more havoc, right? And so we need you to report it, not repost it, and so definitely here's where that piece comes in of having a shared responsibility in this. And unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but every time there's tragic events like this, it is common behavior. This whole copycat thing is common behavior. And, here you have viral threats. I mean, this was a nationwide issue, an Arizona issue, and definitely a Tucson issue. And, and I'm using approximate numbers from the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center. From September 4th to September 24th, there's approximately 130 threats in 20 days. 130 threats. And there's been somewhere around 9 arrests the last couple weeks and ongoing investigations occurring. And so one of the things that we want to share with parents as well, and me as being a parent of school-age children as well, we have to check their social media. We have to have conversations with students about what are the repercussions from doing something like this, which sometimes isn't a comfortable conversation, right? But we have to have these conversations because you're having 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 15-year-olds arrested for, and I believe it falls under like terrorism, right? Some sort of terrorism, these threats. Is that correct, Sergeant Hill?
Yeah, so there's two parts of that, and I'm going to kind of echo. First thing is, I really want to echo is, it is the parents' responsibility. They need to be aware of what their children are putting on their phone and what they're doing online. We had several cases where kids didn't even know who they're talking to. That puts them not just in danger of, spreading these rumors, these posts that are going viral, but it also puts them in danger of online predators. So as parents, we need to be responsible of what our children are doing online. When it comes to making these posts, it can be anything from a misdemeanor charge with two felonies, to include terrorism. And we are actively going after the individuals who post these, who disrupt the schools, because again, the schools should be safe. This is in place for them to learn, and when you're preventing children from learning, we have no tolerance for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the things that I think we've learned from just having conversations with different individuals, with students, with parents, with law enforcement, is that some of our parents do have these discussions regularly. I think sometimes what we don't know as parents, and myself included, is some of our kids have multiple accounts. So you may be thinking you're checking their accounts, and you may check, their account with their name, specific name on it, but they may have multiple accounts. And as Sergeant Hill said here, our schools are supposed to be safe. And I say this confidently, I feel that the Sunnyside schools are safe. I feel like we have some good procedures and protocols in place, and we have to do a better job of articulating that to our parents and what we do have in place. Now, things can always be tighter, things can always be better, but I think we feel confident in what we have in place. And I want to talk a little bit here. I want to give the opportunity for Director of Safety here and Security for the district, Mr. Ryan Powell, to talk a little bit about what Sunnyside has in place in terms of security. And as you oversee the entire district, we have 21 schools, approximately a little over 14,000 students, and about 2,000 employees. So our job is to protect every single one of them. And so, do you want to elaborate on that a little bit, Mr. Powell?
Yeah, sure. I think our greatest asset is those relationships that we do have with the community, and the relationship we do have with the students who say something and they see something, then they say something. And we could not have done any of this investigation or keeping our schools safe with our close relationship that we have with law enforcement, both the Tucson Police Department and the Pima County Sheriff's Department. I think those are our greatest strengths. But we do have a lot of things in place. If you drive by our schools, you'll see that we have those 8-foot wrought iron fences, and we have the limited access, that there's just one entry point for each school. Our high schools and middle schools have our vehicle shacks where you have to check in, and they check every vehicle that comes on the property. Even our elementaries have the windows when you come into the school and you come to the front office. So people that walk off the street, whether it's a parent or a visitor or someone, they have to check in the very beginning. So everyone gets vetted and know who you are and why you're there. On top of that, we have a lot of other security measures besides just the fortification of our schools. Is we have over 700 cameras that are recording throughout the district, 24/7, that we are able to view and review and look at them. Our communication systems with our radios. Every school has a radio. Our schools have communication with my security department immediately. They have communication with transportation, with facilities. So those are big pieces. And on top of that too, I think one of our greatest assets is our employees. We have school campus monitors on every single campus. The school district, out of those 21 schools, we have 46 campus monitors that are dedicated to security. We train them, and constantly we're always keeping them updated on stuff. They're our pipeline to our students. They're the ones who really build those relationships so we can get good information. What's great about our security monitors, these are our people. These are people from our community. A lot of them have graduated from Sunnyside. They're alumni, and they really have an invested interest in, and they're not like retired law enforcement or military or any kind of specially trained. These are our mothers and fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers of the children that are in the school. So they're super invested in wanting to keep things safe. We do have a security department. We have 6 employees that are not assigned to the schools that rove around and respond to when schools need additional help or support. And we're 24/7. We have guys working 7 days a week now, and we are always available through our phone number and our email.
And that phone number, do you want to give them that
Sure,
phone number?
sure, I'd love
I
to.
think it's
Yeah,
important to share that.
So yeah, our 24-hour security phone number is 520-545-4444, and that number is used by all our district employees. Like all our principals can call that number to get immediate assistance. But that that number is also used by the Tucson Police Department, and it's also open for our community. We love getting community calls saying, "Hey, your gate is open," or "We have a suspicious car parked in your fence." So we get that from the community sometimes, or "You have a broken fence over the weekend," or something. And that's how we find out, that we can do something about it.
Absolutely. You know what? We're going to continue on this conversation. We're going to go to a quick break, but hold those thoughts because there's so much more to talk about.
Sunnyside students can have it all, learning and growing to graduate college, career, and community ready. Don't believe us? Just watch. At Sunnyside Unified School District, we are preparing our graduates with real-world skills and experiences. Our graduates are leaving Sunnyside to pursue an Ivy League education, becoming collegiate-level athletes, and earning prestigious scholarships such as the Gates Millennium, Dell, and Dorrance.
All right. So as you were saying, there's an security emergency number that, it's open to the community, open to our employees, and that is 545-4444. As I mentioned earlier, it's a shared responsibility, right? And sometimes our biggest resources are our community, our students, our families, and, we have to make sure, as we said earlier, we don't repost, we report, right? And so as when we know about it, we're going to move quickly about it. I know our security team travels throughout the district, checking on all 21 schools pretty much around the clock, and so we're always available. We will always get back to you because it is one of our top priorities. And so, as you mentioned earlier, I think the community and the listeners need to understand that we have had some safety measures in place for many years now. We're one of the few districts that has, as you mentioned, wrought iron fences around all our properties. We have, and I hate to use the word caged, but that's what they are. There's these caged entries at our elementaries that isolate whoever comes in, and you have to be buzzed through to get onto the campus at our elementaries. Our middle and high schools have security shacks that people have to report once they come in. Now, we're not perfect, and I'm being very transparent here. I think sometimes, I know in law enforcement, they use the word complacency a lot. Complacency is not a good thing, and from time to time, we have people that are complacent. And we have to be honest here, and so we have to continue to be vigilant. We have to continue to make sure people aren't complacent, because when you have complacency, there's a lot more room for error. And I think when you think about safety, human error plays into it a lot. When you provide access to people that want to do bad things, many times it is human error. And so we are continuously having these conversations and talking to these individuals. I think one of the other things, as we're being transparent here, we want our families to know that we will communicate as fast as we can. Anytime we have an incident, such as a social media threat or anything else that falls under that category of being a serious event, emergency event, we will communicate. We have a system we call Bright Arrow, where I'm gonna let Ms. Felix talk to this a little bit. She's, again, our Director of Public Information, because we feel it's important that we're upfront, that we over-communicate, that we're transparent with our families, but I also want our families to know we're moving as fast as everyone else is moving, as we're getting information from law enforcement, and they're moving as fast as they can. And as we get the information, we're moving as fast as we can, and we start getting a lot of calls. So when a situation like this happens, like social media threats, we start getting inundated with calls, and our people have to be prepared to have these conversations. So we have to make sure to have accurate information. So Ms. Felix, if you want to elaborate a little bit on that process when we do have these emergency situations, how we communicate to our families, why is it important for them to have accurate information with us as well?
Sure. I'm also a parent of a middle school student here in our district, and so I definitely understand the sense of urgency we feel when we, through hearsay, find out that there's something kind of going on at the school, right? And parents want to get that information quickly and they want to know what's going on. I work very closely with Mr. Powell, our Director of Security, and we communicate constantly when there's a threat that comes our way. And in preparation for any type of communication that's going out to parents, I mean, my job is to verify and then verify and then verify again and make sure that any information that we're sending to parents is accurate and it's factual. And also there's a layer of confidentiality, right? Especially when we're dealing with students. So we have to be very sensitive about what information can be shared and what cannot be shared. And so, if there's ever details lacking, there's a reason for that. But we do, like you mentioned, Mr. Gastelum, we have a really great system called Bright Arrow where we're able to quickly disperse a communication through email, text message, and then voicemail if needed to all parents in the district or to a specific school if that's what needs to happen. But that's just one layer of it. We also try to keep all of our principals and our front office informed, because many times they're that first line of communication, either when a parent visits or a parent calls the school. We want to make sure that our sites also have all the information about what's going on so that they can be equipped to answer questions. So that's really important that we're all on the same page, kind of sharing the same information with anybody who calls. And so I think that that's something that's worked well for us. It's a system that we have in place. We have emergency communication systems in place that are planned for situations like this. So, we have certain protocols that we follow, and we want to get that information to parents as quickly as possible.
So you heard it, parents, you heard it here, and it's so important that we have accurate phone numbers, accurate emails. We want to make sure that you get the messages that we're sending out. We try to be as proactive as possible. Sometimes these, in some cases, and I'll point this out, these messages go to your spam folders, and we're definitely working on that piece. But always be checking when there's situations like this that you're hearing about. We will communicate. It is our goal to make sure we keep you updated with the most updated information, the most accurate information. And so I do want to go back to this piece of, how we educate our community, how do we educate our students. So currently, a lot of our schools are having safety nights. There's different names for them, safety nights, town halls. They're having discussions about, how we're handling certain situations. And so it's great that we have this dialogue. We want to continue the dialogue with you. We need your feedback because it's important to us. And so, I know there's grade level town halls. There's been student assemblies, and so I've had the opportunity to visit a few of them and participate in a few of them. And, we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to be good partners with this work. And speaking of partnerships, I want to thank law enforcement, but also specifically the Tucson Police Department. We've always had a real good relationship with them, also with the Pima County Sheriff's Department, because I think that's key. I think Mr. Powell mentioned it earlier that a lot of our security monitors are alumni. They graduated from this district. They grew up in this community. We also have our off-duty officers that work in our district that are alumni, and so they do have a deep passion for this community, and they care a lot about this community, and it helps that they know it very well. And so as we start wrapping up here, our goal is to provide good information for you. But I do want to do a round robin here real quick and get some final thoughts. Of anything we haven't covered. So I'm going to start with you, Sergeant Hill. What other messages? What other thoughts, advice, comments that you have for our listeners that we haven't covered here today?
I can't. Give you additional information. We've talked about some really key things today, and if there's any takeaways, if you see something, say something. Don't repost, report. Know that your school and law enforcement have an open line of communication, and we are working hard and diligent to address these issues. Right. It's been a phenomenal working with Sunnyside and the other school districts and with the Pima County Sheriff's Department during this time. It's been really rough, but we've been the partnerships we've formed because of this has been amazing.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear that all our agencies are working together. Mr. Powell, he's a retired sheriff deputy, and so we're very lucky to have him on our team as well. And so I want to give him an opportunity to share some last thoughts here as well.
Thanks. I want to kind of share an experience I had at the safety night I was at last night, and we were talking, and one of the parents pulled me aside, and she was talking about some of the threats, and I remember there was that we had that one Monday where we had a lot of kids didn't come to school because of how this had affected our
Impacts attendance,
yeah,
for sure.
it impacted our attendance, and so I asked her. I said, "Well, did your child go to school?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I sent my daughter to school that day." And I said, "Why did you do that?" And she says, "Because I went to your safety presentation last year and I felt really confident of what you guys had in place." And so that really made me feel good that like this knowledge and learning, and if people know what we have, that could really help combat the fear that these people are trying to display. So I think it's important that we continue having these podcasts and these town halls and everything. I think education is probably the best thing for us to do, is to educate our public, our students, our staff, and so we'll be more prepared in the future.
Thank you for that. Any last comments from you, Ms. Felix?
I think I would just like to add that because we do see our parents as partners in education, we have a commitment to relay information to all of our parents, and we do that. And we're committed to getting that communication out to parents always, and try to be transparent always. And I think that's just important to point out.
Yeah, I think, we need to continue to do a better job of sharing our story, sharing what we have in place. I think sometimes we get caught up in the day-to-day, and there's an expectation from parents that their children are to be taken care of when they drop them off at school, and we have that responsibility to make sure they're safe, and we want to continue that. Unfortunately, sometimes when these incidents happen like this, these trendy, viral social media threats that were occurring, we also start getting suggestions like, hey, and I'm going to say it, I know this is going to be controversial, and I know it depends on what lens you see this through, but you start hearing things like, we should have metal detectors, we should have bulletproof windows, we should have this, and we should have that. And, in my opinion, and this is just solely my opinion, and, I'm always up for the discussion, but our schools shouldn't look like prisons. Our schools shouldn't look like airports when you're going through metal detectors, having to take shoes off, having to take belts off, having to look through backpacks. School should be a comfortable, safe learning environment. Kids should feel welcome there. They should feel super comfortable there. And I get it. I mean, I don't say this disrespectfully. It's something that, of course, our most precious commodities are our children. And, I have a school-age child that comes to school in the district as well. But I encourage you to have the conversations with your site leaders, have the conversations with your teachers. And I didn't mean to open up a can of worms there at the end of the show here, but I do want to address the elephant in the room, address these pieces that, we want to make sure that we have these safety pieces in place, and we may not always agree on what's best for our schools, but we're always open to have a respectful conversation, and we need you as parents. We need your thoughts, we need your feedback, and we're here to serve you, and we're here to serve your children, and we want to make sure that we always return them safely to you. What we had these last couple of weeks was social media threats. It wasn't a situation that happened in the school. These were things that were out of our control in terms of misuse of social media. And I don't say that defensively, I really don't, but I just want to remind us of what caused the distraction and the disruption, and caused, a poor attendance for a few days, for the entire week, as a matter of fact. And that's what it is. And so it's a shared responsibility. A lot falls on us as a school district, and a lot falls on us as parents. And so we want to continue to have this conversation, and we hope you pass this along, because it's important to have these conversations. And we want to get better. We want to make sure that we have the top systems in place when it comes to safety, and we're open to these conversations. And so, we leave you with that. So I do want to thank our listeners for tuning in. I want to thank you for having this discussion with your children. We'll continue to have these discussions on our sites. And until the next time, thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Somos Sunnyside. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it entertaining. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and share our podcast with la comunidad. For updates on future episodes and more, be sure to follow us on social media and visit our website at susd12.org. We appreciate your support and can't wait to have you back for the next episode. Hasta la próxima vez en Somos Sunnyside.